So far, we've learned how to compute our superelevation transitions and how to modify them. I want to take a look now at how we can assign our superelevation calculations to our roadway corridor. So in this video, we're going to take a look at how we assign our superelevation transitions for our State Route 97 superelevation lanes here, how we assign that information to our actual roadway corridor for State Route 97. To assign our superelevation information to our corridor, we need to go and open our corridor file. So I'm going to go up here and select Open. I'm going to select my SR97 corridor file. You can see I already have a corridor created, so I have my 2D plan view over here in view number 1. I have my 3D view here showing my corridor, and I also have view number 8 set up to show and display my dynamic cross sections from my corridor model. So what we want to be able to do is assign our superelevation information to our corridor so that we get the model to superelevate properly. So I want to first review my reference files. So I'm going to go up to References. You're going to see I have my existing terrain attached, I have my geometry, and I also have my superelevation file attached. Okay, so you need to be aware that you need to attach your superelevation file as a reference file in order for the corridor to read the superelevation information. Okay, so we already have that attached. I've already gone ahead and done that ahead of time. So now let's go and talk about how we assign the superelevation to the corridors. I'm going to go up to Corridors. I'm going to come over to Superelevation. I'm going to go to Calculate. And you're going to see the tool called Assign to Corridor. So I'm going to select that. It's going to prompt us to locate our first superelevation section. So I'm just going to zoom down here to my corridor in the plan view. And I'm going to select my superelevation section. Now remember, this is attached as a reference file, so you want to make sure you select the appropriate superelevation shape or section. I'm going to right click to complete, and then I'm going to locate my corridor. So I can just grab one of the corridor handles, and that's going to bring up the Associate Superelevation dialog box. Now, what this is showing you here is it's showing you the superelevation lanes. It's showing you the points that have been flagged to be controlled for superelevation inside of the template. Okay, when you create your template, there's special flags that you set on the template points that tell it which points need to be superelevated. So that's where these points are coming from. And then we have our start and our stop stations here. Okay, so these are our various lanes that we've created in our superelevation DGN, and then our template points that we're going to control. So these essentially are going to become point controls in our corridor. Now, we also have multiple template drops along this corridor. Since we are doing some widening and we have that auxiliary lane towards the end of the project, there's a different template drop there. So we actually need to adjust and add an additional superelevation point control here and superelevation object. So what I want to do is I'm going to adjust the start station for my center line right edge of pavement right lane. I want to adjust this. So we're going to adjust the stationing on this guy. This is going to be 763 plus 50. And then the start station for our auxiliary lane is going to be 763 plus 50. Because if you recall, we created the auxiliary lane starting at 763 plus 50. So we're just making some adjustments here to some of our point controls so that it controls the templates properly. Now we also want to create an additional superelevation point control for the beginning of the project up to where the auxiliary lane begins. So I'm going to come in here and select my right lane again. And this time I'm going to select my superelevation point, EOPR. And then our CLR point here. And then we want to go from the beginning of the project up to where the auxiliary lane begins. So we want to use 538 as the beginning of the project up to 763 plus 50. And then we want to set our priority as 1. And we're doing that so we get the proper point controls set up for our templates that we have along our corridor here. So it's just an additional step that we have to do for this particular scenario. Now once we're done, click OK. It'll do a little bit of processing, and once it's done, You'll see now in our cross-section view the roadway is now super elevated, and you can also see that we have some additional point controls that were created for both sides of our roadways, and that's indicated by these magenta markers or these magenta boxes that appear on the cross sections. And if you scroll through the section, you'll see that we do have some super elevated areas along our corridor now. Now, one other thing we want to do is we want to navigate through our sections, make sure all the super elevation is working properly. And then one way to check our slopes is to simply use our temporary dimension lines. So what we can do is go to place temporary dimension lines between our various template points on our cross sections. So I'm just going to come over here and select place temporary dimension line. I'm going to zoom into my eastbound side here, and I'm going to select my crown point on my eastbound pavement as my start point, and then my end point. I'm going to select my edge of pavement right here. I'm just going to push that up there a little bit, and then we're going to come over here and place our temporary dimension line for the other lanes. So I'm going to select my crown point, then my right edge of pavement, or my left edge of pavement, and then put in my temporary dimension. So now what you can do is kind of scroll through your sections, take a look at how the super elevation is transitioning, as well as the cross slopes and the width of the actual pavement that you've defined based on your template. So you can see your slopes there, and you can do that for both sides of the roadway. So we can do that on the eastbound and the westbound side, and between any template point that exists on the cross section. Now, one other thing you may want to review is the point controls that got created. So we're going to go up to corridor objects, select the corridor objects, select your corridor, and let's review the point controls that were created as a result of assigning the super elevation to the corridor. So you can see here's all the different point controls that were created, their station ranges, and the various lanes that they're associated to. So always important to be aware of how this works. So if you need to modify some point controls, you can do that inside of this dialog box. You don't have to go back and reassign your super elevation.